it's like how Noggin was demised in 2009, but however, there's also a sister channel of Noggin that we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about Noggin's sister channel, The N, or aka TeenNick. I remember The N very well. I did not know that Noggin had a nighttime block called The N. The Noggin, which is stand for the nighttime block on Noggin for preteens and teenagers and grown-ups. I don't remember watching The N, but I wasn't allowed to watch The N because I was pretty young back then, and also, back in my formative years, I watched Noggin with my grandmother. I would catch glimpses of The N after Noggin would finish airing, and Misuse saying their final goodbye. Actually, not their final goodbye, their sign-off. But I think I remember looking at some tapes from archive.org and looking some videos on YouTube about The N. So, I'm doing this. The history of The N, and we need to talk about the predecessor that Nickelodeon had on their channel, TeenNick. How did these two brands get to be, and why did The N change from The N to TeenNick? Mador Entertainment asked us, does TeenNick carry on Noggin's old legacy? In this video, we're going to find out. As I talked about how Noggin became the downfall, I suggest you guys watch my history of Noggin. The video is in my main page of my YT channel. For those who are new subscribers that don't know, in 2001, the Jim Henson Company sold its share of Noggin and its rights to the Sesame Street Muppets to Sesame Workshop, which left Ooby as the only show left for preschoolers on Noggin. Something needed to be done by this point, as preschool-oriented programming was part of Noggin's bread and butter, which means that Noggin's early morning block was discontinued because of that issue. And so, in March of 2002, Noggin manager Tom Aschheim announced that Noggin would be divided into two blocks, one for younger children and one for older children and preteens. On April Fool's Day 2002, Tom Aschheim's plans were carried out. The Noggin brand was given to a preschool-oriented block, similar to Nick Jr., but with its own Noggin flavored, including the addition of Play With Me Sesame and 123 Sesame Street and Tiny Planets. And to fill the void that Noggin left behind, The N was launched in the old Noggin's place. Both Noggin and The N both shared the same channel. Noggin would air from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., while The N would air from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., like a 12 hours majority. It's a 50-50 share percentage. It's a big win-win. So, starting on April Fool's Day 2002, every night at 6, Noggin becomes The N. Same channel, different network. April 1st, Real Life Now. That's their slogan of The N. The N, Real Life Now. The N was aimed at teenagers and break kids and preteens, just like the original Noggin. The N aired many of the same shows Noggin used to air, such as Big Kids, Classic Electrical Company, A Walk in Your Shoes, Ghost Rider, and Spunk, which is Noggin's original series with Sesame Workshop. Because, if you did not know, the last airing of Spunk aired on March 3rd, 2002, and it was cancelled. The show ran in reruns on The N, however, until January 1st, 2003. Or should I say in The N, because during each promo of N tags, the announcer would say a new show, a new episode of the show, and would say this Monday at 9 Eastern, only in the N. Not only the N aired many of the same shows Noggin used to air, they air Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Degrassi the Next Generation, Saved by the Bell, O'Grady, Daria, Romeo, The Offbeat, Moshia, and what's so memorable? The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Probably because y'all pretty know about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because it was truly and used to be a Nick at Night show. Then there was somehow an NBC show. Then TBS. I don't know where the heck the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air show went. It seemed to be doing well. Yeah, the N seems pretty entertaining. If I was a teenager back in the 2000s, I could have watched it. But ever since the N was demised, I had to watch tapes, as well as watching it on archive.org. And also, the N had a great lineup of programming for teenagers and preteens. And their programming included explicit topics like reproduction. Also, much like Noggin, the N had a website where you can chat with other people, take polls, play games, take quizzes, and talk about teenagey things in general. But even before the N was launched, Nickelodeon had a block for teenagers called TeenNick. That's TeenNick. That's uppercase TEEN, lowercase ICK. Not the TeenNick we're familiar with today. Anyway, the TeenNick block was launched in March of 2001 and it aired from 6 to 9 p.m. It aired shows like Drake and Josh, All That, Zoe 101, Ned's Classified School Survival Guide, H2O Just Had Water, My Life as a Teenage Robot, and Mr. Meaty. And funnily enough, TeenNick even had a block on the N called TeenNick on the N, of course, and aired shows like how they did on the main TeenNick block on Nickelodeon. It was first introduced in 2007 before disappearing in the N in late 2007. Then it returned in early 2008, and it was discontinued for good on August 3rd, 2009. In 2007, Nickelodeon and Viacom announced that Nick Gas would be discontinued and that the N would take over its channel space. On December 31st, 2007, everything changed. Noggin became a 24-hour channel, while Nick Gas kicked the bucket and made way for the N. What I mean is, Noggin and the N became their own separate networks rather than sharing the same channel. Just over 2 years later, in 2009, Nickelodeon announced that the N would be rebranded as TeenNick, the one we are more familiar with. In 2009, the new TeenNick logo was unveiled, using the style that will be implemented with the other Nick brands as well later that year. The Splat logo went away. It was retired, replaced by a new Nickelodeon styling, which is the light bulb logo. The new Nickelodeon style came out of nowhere and popped out in front of everyone's TV. Some people do not really like the new logo or the modern era styling because some people digress. So, let's continue. TeenNick was launched on September 28th, 2009, on the same day that Noggin was replaced with Nick Jr. The two brands are a spin-off of Nickelodeon's long-running preschool block and long-running teenagers block. TeenNick carried on the same programming as the N, like Nick Jr. Nick Jr. carries on the programming from Noggin as it still carries preteen-oriented programming. I think the Upside Down show is the one behind all it, I believe. So TeenNick carried on the same programming as the N, as well as the previous TeenNick shows, and with some Nickelodeon mixed in. TeenNick was actually the non-HD Nickelodeon channel ever since when 2015 came, when Nickelodeon and the Nick Jr. channel had HD feeds. TeenNick got one later in the 2016 year. On July 25th, 2011, The 90s Are All That was launched on TeenNick. The 90s Are All That, as the name implies, is a late-night block that aired 90s Nickelodeon shows, such as The Rugrats, Hey Arnold, Cat Dog, All That, The Wild Thornberrys, Angry Beavers, Kenan and Kel, and Kablam, and many more. They also aired Rocko's Modern Life, too. The 90s Are All That block was rebranded as The Splat in 2015, then again in 2017 as Nick Splat, then again as Nick Rewind on March 18th, 2019. Now, all you guys probably be wondering, Tajmir, does TeenNick carry on the legacy of the N and Old Noggin? Well, let me be fair honest with you guys. For a most successful to the N, yes, but not really Old Noggin. Sorry, this is sad to everybody. Because the two brands that existed ever since the 2000s, such as the N and Noggin, two places where you could go online and on TV, now exists as a form of their shadows now. Also, much of the same programming that the N used to air were still played, both on the main channel and Nick Rewind. Unfortunately, not anymore. Drake and Josh have been retired from TeenNick. Degrassi was retired on TeenNick as well. Also, the final TeenNick original series top 10 had been finally ended production in a year during the 2010s decade. Yeah, some of the programming from the N were eliminated from existence. Whoever was pulling the strings at Nickelodeon and TeenNick apparently made a huge difference. The same thing again, like Nick Jr. Unfortunately, Nick Rewind is actually starting to decline in ratings. If you don't know why, it's because they took off the original All That. They took off Kenan and Kel off the air. They also stopped airing Cat Dog. Yeah, you probably don't like it now. The schedule has the same boring programming. The same dang boring programming. It's all about Rugrats, Rugrats, Rugrats. And I want to see is Kenan and Kel, Kenan and Kel, Kenan and Kel. I stopped watching Nick Rewind on TeenNick ever since. But even though I stopped watching Nick Rewind, I'm still continuing to make TeenNick/Nick Rewind commercial breaks because I want to do them. Please accept my decision. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of TeenNick? Do you think it should keep on the legacy of the N and Old Noggin as a 50-50 majority? Do you think the N could have stayed on better? What do you think? Thanks for watching and stay tuned. And thanks for 757 subscribers.